America. That's right. This is Made in America show here on the King's Broadcasting Network. I want to welcome all of you. We are streaming live on the World Wide Web at hometalkusa.com. Lot going on in the Made in America segment. And we want to, again, welcome all of you. And I'd like to welcome my sidekick, the Made in America guy himself, Mr. Greg Owens. Hey, Mr. Greg, how you doing, my buddy?
It's great to be here with you, Michael. Doing well.
We got a lot we got to talk about. We got a great some great guests. We got Mr. John Gardner is going to be on the show a little later, but a lot going on. As you know, uh, yesterday, day before yesterday, the president he always promises what he says he's going to do, and we bomb Iran. What's going on? Everybody's waiting for the bill. We're going to talk about the bill that's being. We knew it was going to kind of be kind of steady there a little bit, or kind of stalled a little bit, and then we also have everybody's waiting on the tariff situation. So we got to get the ball moving here. Anything you want to share? What you're hearing in Washington? I know you're kind of plugged in over there. What's going on? I'm kind of disappointed. What's going on? I mean, I'm happy that we decided to take out the nuclear thing over there, but a lot going on, and all this is going to affect the Made in America products and companies. We're just sitting, waiting right now to. Did you feel like we had a stall pattern right now? I mean, I don't know.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's a couple things going on that impact the tariffs and the trade. Number one being the big beautiful bill that passed the House, and now it's in the Senate. They've said that they'd like to have something resolved by the 4th of July. And there are big differences between the current Senate version and the House version. A lot of the trade positions, namely the de minimis exception, are not in the Senate version currently. I was on a call with the crew from prosperousamerica.org last week, and they seem to indicate that maybe that was left out in the first draft of the Senate version on purpose because they need to maybe negotiate some things, and that hopefully it will get back in there. And then, of course, once that bill is finalized and passed by the Senate, which everybody expects they will do, it goes back to the committee, and it needs to be reconciled with the House version so that they can come up with one clean version and vote on it. So everybody's sort of in a holding pattern, waiting to see what's going to come out of that. The other thing that has happened in the last week or so is that the Section 232 downstream products comments period came to a close. So what that means is that everybody who wanted to come out and generally say something, oh my goodness, the sky is falling, and something negative about extending the steel and aluminum tariffs downstream to products that are made out of steel and aluminum, well, they've had their chance to get their 10 cents in, and Secretary of Commerce has 90 days to come back with a recommendation to the president on which of the, I believe it was 27 different categories should be implemented, and a time frame for doing so. And we're hopeful that that will be a favorable thing for domestic trade. What are the steel mills supposed to do if they produce all the steel and they don't have customers to sell it to? Yeah. And like we've talked about in the past, they're not going to export it. I mean, China's flooding the world market with cheap steel. Yeah. So you're looking at your domestic market, and it all ties back into this national security issue and national economic security issue. We need steel mills to be able to produce all different types of grades of steel. We need them to up their production capacity. And in order to do that, they're going to need customers. So that's what this is all about.
Yeah. And I know the media kind of hides it in a way. Well, it's being stalled, which is a little part of it, is that on the, cutting the budget, that's it kind of got stalled that way. The House version did not cut the budget enough. Well, they could always come back and amend the thing. It's a lot easier to bring it back than to send it forward, if that makes sense, because they've already passed it in the House. They just got to do their amendment, amend it a little bit.
And yeah, Michael, you turn on the news and you listen to a bunch of different things, and all you have to do is turn on Fox on one side and CNN on the other side, and you get two
Yeah.
different versions of reality. What I would consider what you're reading and listening to and watching on the news, it's political theater is really what it is.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have a whole lot to do with the serious conversations that are taking place behind the scenes. And until they come out with the final version, we really won't know what those serious conversations are. I'm pretty confident that there's a lot more agreement, even across aisles, behind the scenes than there ever will be publicly because of the politics.
And the biggest advantage that we have is that you're on the ground floor. Hell, you're in Washington. You've been in meetings. You kind of on the ground. You're getting, not the stuff behind closed doors, but the stuff when it comes out of the closed doors. You're there.
I talked to the people who maybe have been behind closed doors or at least in meetings after that. Yeah. And they kind of give you an indication of where things are headed. And, you combine that with a little intuition, what makes sense? Because, a lot of these things that you read on the news, particularly the extreme things on the left and the extreme things on the right, well, they just don't make any sense. So in the end, one of the things that actually does work well in government is they move very slowly and very cautiously. So some of these knee-jerk reactions and hysteria that you see in the media is very unlikely to translate into legislation.
And the difference between two stories that we're getting, the first story, you have elected officials that have to go back and face their constituents because they're constantly running, especially if you're in the House, it's every 2 years. Senate's got a little brief recess there a little bit, 6 years. But the point is you have a president that's got nothing to lose. He can't run again. So that's the point. He's trying to get as much as he can in his 4 years, where the House and the Senate just sits back because they know once he's gone, then so there's a time difference going on right there, and we're still at warp speed. I mean, his first 100 days was serious, but we're still at warp speed. What's going on right now? But now,
one of the things that happens in DC all the time, and I don't know that it'll be the case with the big beautiful bill because it's pretty much going to go down party lines, but it's not uncommon, like you say. Representatives have to go back to their district and speak to their constituents. Well, there might be something in a Democratic bill that the Republican needs to support because of local reasons. And when it comes down to the end and they count up all the votes, they'll provide cover to that representative and allow them to break with party lines in order to preserve their situation at home. So it's just a lot of gamesmanship and a lot of politics.
Well, and I also got to let my audience know, I mean, maybe they didn't realize just because you're in a Republican district, that don't mean that they're going to vote Republican, or a Democrat district, because right now I think we have 9 U.S. And matter of fact, I was talking to one last night, very impressive guy. We have 9 U.S. Representatives that are Republicans, but are in majority Democrat districts that are getting elected from the Democrats. So we got to make that understand that that's still 9 votes out there that, even though they're pro what's going on with the president or pro president, they're still in Democratic districts that wants to come over to the conservative side. So I just wanted to throw that in there. Just because you're a Republican, Democrat in the area, that don't mean you're in your majority district. Because there's 9 of them out there. Yeah.
And that's the way it's supposed to work, isn't it? You're supposed to go down to D.C. and represent your constituents
and the policies. That's right.
And you can have influence within your own party to how those bills are constructed, and you can be allowed sometimes to vote against them if it's in your constituents' interest and it's not going to thwart the outcome. Yeah,
and that's so important. But man, we're going to have some great topics and shows coming up in the future, and we're going to keep monitoring it. And we just, we welcome all of you out there. Just keep listening to the show and go to hometalkusa.com. All right, we're going to have to wrap up right here on the Made in America Show. I am the Cajun contractor, Michael King, the Made American guy. We're going to be back with John Gardner. Y'all stay tuned here now.
All right.
Okay, Michael.
All right, you got it from here, brother.
All right.
Very good, John.
What's that?
Let's get John unmuted. There we go.
Hey, John.
Hi, guys. How's it going? Nice to see you.
Good. How are you?
Thanks for having me back.
You look pretty good.
Well,
I
thank
know
you.
you were kind of under the weather, or your family was. So,
I'm still fighting a little bit, but it's always opportunities don't come every day, so you want to get it together and be there when they happen. So
okay. Well, cool. So, basically, kind of following the book. Again, I'll be short with my questions, and you can be long with your answers.
okay,
Let it roll.
good to see you, Greg.
Okay. Good to see you. Um, Matt, whenever you're ready.
Okay. So this is going to be our segment two in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Mics are open.
Welcome back, everybody, to Home Talk USA on the King Broadcasting Network. This is the Made in America Hour, and I'm your host, Greg Owens, here with John Gardner, author of the book Manufacture Local: How to Make America the Manufacturing Superpower of the World. Before we get with John, I'd like to give a shout out to our sponsor for this segment, Bond Products. For DIY carpet binding, there is only one Instabind. You can find it at bondproducts.com. John, welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me again, Greg.
I appreciate your coming right off of a vacation and making time for us this morning. I know that first day back can be a little busy, right?
Oh yeah, but this is always fun. So
Yeah. Well, I thought what we'd do, you wrote an interesting book, and we've had you on the show before, and we've talked about it. But a lot of people out there probably haven't heard those episodes. So, starting out, chapter one, what happened to American manufacturing? If you could just sort of run through that real quick.
Well, I think what happened to all of American economic mentality was Milton Friedman's book, Capitalism and Freedom. And that changed our university's thought pattern and everything we taught and approached to unilateral free trade, meaning that we can, that even if other countries tariff us at 100, 150%, it's better for us, we were told, to tariff at zero. And Milton Friedman even said, and this is exact quote from him, it's demeaning for America to tariff other nations. And that so I think we've been brainwashed in our schools on the right and the left to assume that this mentality is correct and never to question it. And those who do question it are hit with the kind of mantra, well, Milton Friedman said, and I have a personal problem when people just say somebody said this, so it makes it right. So part of my book is the question why we started to think offshoring our manufacturing was good for national security, was good for our middle class, because the manufacturing industry and industrial might are what have built great powers and great middle classes throughout history. So I really wanted to write a book that was accessible to every single American. I just read an interesting statistic today that 8 out of 10 Americans do not understand or know anything about the manufacturing industry. And so I wrote my book specifically in a way that anybody could read it. 80-year-old grandma or a 8th grade kid could read it. And it's filled with anecdotes from my life. And it's easily digestible to help every American understand that producing a product is the most important thing for our economy and our national security. And we need to keep that within our borders as much as we can.
Yeah. And, back to Milton Friedman and even Adam Smith, the father of capitalism, these guys sort of live in a world of academia. And within that world, it's sort of this ideal thing that doesn't exist. And if you talk to people who have studied and understand trade, and I think you're one of those people, you realize that there really is no such thing as free trade. Every country has, including the United States to a certain extent, has not only tariffs, but non-tariff barriers and value-added or ad valorem taxes and all sorts of rules and regulations that protect their own markets. And it's anything but free and fair. Isn't that correct?
100%. And I think the name of Milton Friedman's book, Capitalism and Freedom, let's diagnose those two words. First of all, capitalism is when you sell something of value, right? You don't give it away for free. Yet we have a golden market and we are giving away access to our market for free. How does it benefit us to not have a tariff on Suriname? who we don't care about their market, but they want to be in our market because we have a huge market. We have the largest consumer market on the planet. How does that benefit our nation to give, Suriname access, or Panama, or some small market free access? So you sell something of value with capitalism. And another note on the other part of the book title, Capitalism and Freedom, on freedom. What is more free for the American citizen? To have tariffs that replace income tax, which is how America functioned for 140 years, right? There was no income tax up till 1913, and up until World War II, it was 1 to 6% income tax, right? And all the federal government's bills were paid with tariffs. So what is more free? We've been told that it is more free for American citizens to have businesses overseas with slave labor and strip mine and bad environmental products penetrate our market so we get cheaper goods. We've been told that's freedom. But I want to argue that point. And I think true freedom is to have our income tax paid with tariffs. And so that our revenue as a citizen that we earn, our income, is not subject to taxes. That to me is true freedom. And that's what I argue in this book. And that's why I created the term the External Revenue Service. And I think every American on the left and right and middle should be questioning Milton Friedman and Thomas Sowell and all these icons of economy, because their ideas work in a perfect world in a classroom, but when you get out in the real world, they don't work. And these guys lived in a classroom, and we all followed their lead to our detriment.
Yeah, and you go to people that are currently in politics, sort of the last stragglers of the globalist movement. I'll point out Rand Paul, who has some very libertarian views on trade. And not that I disagree at all with everything that the libertarians would say, but their position on trade is basically get the government out of the way and let everybody do what they want to do, take away all the tariffs, all the regulations, and let it flow into our country. Well, if everybody did that, maybe that would be okay. But the reality of the situation outside of that ideological classroom is that other countries put up all these barriers. And if you do that, you're just setting yourself up to get ripped off, which is really what Trump, I think, is that the term he used, ripped off, for years. And that's what's been going on. And it's time to put an end to that. And I think we're on the path to do that, right?
I do. And I think changing the mentality of Americans from what they've been taught and told to believe is so important. And so we support future presidents and future congressmen. And on the Rand Paul note, Larry Elder is a friend of mine, and he's a famous libertarian, and he hated tariffs. And he'd always say to me, "Oh, Milton Friedman this, Thomas Sowell that." Well, he read my book, and he told me the other day, he's like, "I've changed my mind on tariffs. I've rethought a lot of my assumptions." And to me, that was a very proud moment, because that was the exact goal and purpose of my book, is to get people who believe this to change their thought pattern.
All right. Well, we're going to have to take a quick break here in a minute. But what I want to do is come back and talk to you a little bit more about the book, and expand on some of these comments and get into some of the other sections. This is Home Talk USA. This is the Made in America Hour. We will be right back.
Okay. Ready for number 3?
Ready for number 3.
Great. Okay, this is going to be our segment 3 in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Mics are open.
Welcome back, everybody, to Home Talk USA here on the King Broadcasting Network. I'm your host, Greg Owens, and this is the Made in America Hour. We're here with John Gardner. Before we get back with John, I'd like to give a shout out to our sponsor for this segment, Lion Energy. You can go anywhere with portable power solar generators. Find them at lionenergy.com. John, welcome back. And when we left off, we were talking about some of the ideology that gets involved, and how it flies in the face of the reality of what we're seeing. Kind of going into the next section of the book, why do we care? Why make it in America? And I know you have some great thoughts on that.
Well, manufacturing has built the greatest middle classes in history. The manufacturing industry, for every dollar spent, generates $2.86 for the economy, giving it the highest multiplier effect of any sector of the economy. And this is from a Defense Department study in 2021. Also, you want to be able to produce the things, the bare necessities that your nation and national defense needs, rather than going to your strategic adversary like China, as we currently are. But I also think that you know the manufacturing industry right now needs to reintroduce itself to Americans. And everybody on the news, most of the people in the media and politics and academia have never worked in our industry, Greg, in your industry too. And it makes me sad. We need to see more voices for the manufacturing industry in media, in politics, people who have actually worked in it, not just talk about it. And I'd like to see us giving a bigger platform. And I'd like to see the next generation of youth see these facilities of today, how they're clean and how they're not the industries of yesteryear with black smoke billowing out of the factory top. They're very high tech, and manufacturing is going to boom in a high tech, automated AI way. And we need our youth to realize they don't need a college debt to join this industry. And really, the manufacturing industry provides hope and opportunity in the stepping stones up the rung of the ladder of economic opportunity. And that's really what I'm most excited to see.
Yeah, and to all the young people out there listening, you're thinking about, do I go out and get a college degree? And they're sort of on the fence and don't really know what they want to spend all those tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars on. A 2-year degree in mechatronics can open up the window to a wonderful career in manufacturing. And we're talking about jobs that start off in the $30 to $35 an hour range and go up from there with expertise, right? These are not welcome to Walmart, here's your shopping cart jobs, right?
100%. And I think we need to stop talking about the manufacturing industry as the economy as a whole. And to give you a perfect example on tariffs, you all know I'm a big tariff fan. But right now, tariffs on machine tools like manufacturing CNC mills and lathes from Germany, who make some of the best right now, will have a large tariff on it. And I have friends of mine who are like, "Hey, listen, I need to be able to purchase this machine." The manufacturing industry is treated the same as a consumer product, the same as retail, and it should be separated off, not just with tariffs, but with lending as well. To get back to my point, for example, my buddy needs to purchase this machine, a Hermele, from Germany, because it's the only machine that can hold the tolerances that he needs to create military parts. The American machines can't hold these tolerances. And yet he has to face a tariff to buy this machine. Whereas we should say, what Peter Navarro should do and say is like, hey, we're going to give a year exemption until we can build machine manufacturing, the machine tool manufacturing capability here in America. We'll give you a year. Here's the deadline. Instead, the manufacturing industry is clumped together with, clothes or, olive oil or whatever. And it needs to be treated differently. As far as lending, we hear all this rhetoric from the SBA as far as Kelly Loeffler saying, oh, we're doing all this stuff for the manufacturing industry. Guess what? They're not. I just tried to get a loan to buy my office unit here. And I talked to 4 different bankers. I asked them, have you received any guidance that treats the manufacturing industry any different from me than any other industry, like a McDonald's or franchise or a mom and pop clothes store or something? They've received zero guidance. The only change that the SBA has made for manufacturers is to raise the cap from borrowing for 5 to 10 million, which doesn't really help a small manufacturer that much. And let's remember that 90% of manufacturers are 50 employees or less. So they don't need a $5 or $10 million loan. Most of them don't. So really, there's a lot of rhetoric right now, and there's no voice of wisdom from within the industry to the administration. As much as I love Peter Navarro, he's been in academia his whole life. He's never worked in our industry. I have all the respect in the world for the guy, but we need to get some voices from within the industry into the administration.
Well, that's what we try and do with our work through CPA. Myself in particular, I know you've participated in some things, is there are a lot of lawyers and there are a lot of politicians involved in that. And they've never really, they're at lefty, loosey, righty, tighty, they really don't know anything about making anything. And, to try and give them, I call it from the trenches input into what they're trying to do, things that are actually going to make a difference. But one of the things that I loved about your book is, and you mentioned this earlier, is that it's so easy to read. And for a lot of people out there listening today, they don't really know a whole lot about manufacturing, So where do we find your book, and how can we get, and by the way, this is it's a thin paperback book. It's an easy read. You could bang it out, in a day, very easily. And it's written in such a way that it doesn't, there's not tables and graphs and all sorts of math and E equals MC squared. It's very easy to understand, and it will really help the readers and the audience that's listening to us today, hopefully you'll go out there and get it, understand these issues and how to cut through some of the rhetoric that you see in the press and really understand the issue at its core. So, John, where do we find the book?
If you put a manufacturer local John Gardner into Amazon or Barnes and Noble or Walmart, it's everywhere online as far as those larger platforms you can order it from. And I appreciate you recognizing that there wasn't a lot of graphs and charts. I didn't have any of that in my book because I wanted to be stories from my own life that people can relate to in the history I grew up around of manufacturing in Pittsburgh and watching Pittsburgh fall. From 1980 to 1985, we lost from 1980 to 1983, we lost 150,000 steel mill jobs in Pittsburgh. From 1983 to 1985, we lost another 100,000 peripheral jobs. By 1990, 60% of the population of Pittsburgh had left the city because the jobs were all gone. That's one city in America. And luckily, Pittsburgh has been able to rebuild itself. But you look at Baltimore and Detroit and Chicago, and was that considered, was this economic loss for the middle class considered when Milton Friedman did his theories on economy? And I don't think it was. I don't think losses were accounted for.
And, the gamesmanship that's been going on, and I get Milton Friedman's economies of scale, but manufacturing used to make up about 30% of the workforce in the United States. Today, the last statistic I heard, it's below 8%. And it at that point becomes this national security and economic security crisis, because if a nation can't be self-sustaining and make the things that they need in order to survive, that makes them really dependent on others. And we're seeing that with these trade negotiations, particularly with China, aren't we?
Yeah, 100%. A very good example of what you just described is I reference it in my book is that the U.S. Navy stopped making torpedoes from 1996 to 2016. When the Trump administration came in and said, hey, we want to make torpedoes again. It took them 2 years till 2018 to figure out how to manufacture torpedoes again. And I referenced I think the admiral who was asked about it, he's like, we just learned one thing. We never want to stop making it again because it took them 2 years is half the time it took to fight and win World War II. Our industrial power is in our human capital of knowledge and ability to make things. And that's a frightening example of when you stop making stuff, it becomes a death spiral for a nation and an economy because we literally cannot make some things right now. And we don't have the human capital that even knows how. And that's a very scary place for a nation to be.
Right. And picture yourself as Donald Trump sitting there in the White House, and he likes to say, I want this done, and I want it done on Trump time, which means tomorrow. And for somebody to come back to him and say it's going to be 2 years before we can make a torpedo without relying on China or some of the other trading partners that may not be very friendly during a time of conflict, that's got to be very frustrating for him and for others. But it's a question of putting it all together, right? I mean, you have to get the SBA back down to earth and doing things that are actually going to help. So we've got to take a quick break now, and then we'll be back with John. This is Home Talk USA on the King Broadcasting Network. We'll be right back with more of the Made in America Hour.
Okay. So, ready for number 4?
Sure. And John, I want to spend a lot of time in number 4 on the new manufacturing campaign for America.
Okay.
When we've done these before, we've sort of glossed over that one, and I'm interested to hear you go into depth on that one. But okay, so we'll continue on with the supply chain and national security, and I'll quickly weave into that.
And seriously, Greg, thanks for noticing that there weren't a bunch of graphs in my book. That was a purposefully made choice, and I wanted to differentiate myself. And thanks for noticing that. So.
Yeah, absolutely. You did a great job of that. Jim Stuber did an okay job of that. He tried, and Ian Fletcher and Mark Fastel, they have a lot of charts and graphs.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Anyway, okay, ready when you are, Matt.
All right. So this is going to be the final segment of Home Talk. Hour 3, segment 4. In 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Mics are open.
Welcome back, everybody, to the King Broadcasting Network. Home Talk USA. This is the Made in America Hour. I'm your host, Greg Owens, here with John Gardner, author of the book Manufacturer Local: How to Make America the Manufacturing Superpower of the World. We'll get John back on here in just a second, but before we get to that, I'd like to give a shout out to Aztec Washer, our sponsor for this segment. Revolutionary and innovative roofing products since 1968. I love their motto. Seal it right, seal it tight. You can find them at aztecwasher.com. Well, John, welcome back. And let's wrap up the conversation real quickly about this concept of national security. And most people think about that as being just the military and the torpedoes you were talking about, but economic security as well. Prescription drugs, something we've had Rosemary Gibson, who I believe you've met, on the show, talking about how we depend on other nations, most namely India and China, for the majority of our prescription drug active ingredients. And if we were to be cut off for some reason, within 6 weeks, our hospitals would start running out of key medications from antibiotics and beyond. We wouldn't be able to perform surgeries. It would be a national crisis. What do you know about that subject, and what do you think about that?
Oh, I think it's horrible. I think it shows the flaw in free trade theory, and I think that it shows how stupid the path that our nation has been led down is. And I think we need to reshore it as fast as possible. The thing about that dynamic that upsets me the most is it was found, I think Rosemary brought it up, that these medication manufacturing facilities in China and India were given waivers even after, by the FDA, even after massive abuses were found and poisoned lots or whatever, all the flaws that were found, they were given waivers to continue to do stuff. Now, if that happened in America, the facility would be shut down, there'd be fines, there'd be all kinds of issues. The same thing with slave labor. If you go over to China, you can find companies that use sweatshop or slave labor or forced labor making products that come here to America. Nothing's done about it. It's talked about, nothing's done. Why don't America's laws and morals apply to companies that want to penetrate our market? The hypocrisy of it is really what sickens me. And I think we need to look at ourselves in the mirror and say, is this concept of unilateral free trade worth the moral soul of our nation to allow other nations to make things with slave labor and then sell them in our market, or to make flawed goods and give them waivers while American companies have to follow hard laws? It seems absurd to me.
Yeah, but and beyond that, I mean, even if it isn't some nefarious thing where they're skipping tests, you're taking a statin, you're taking some other sort of heart medication. What if it doesn't work? What if the dose is more than it's supposed to be and it's not consistent from batch to batch? The testing, we've been cut off from the testing of this. And the FDA has no way of testing every batch of every medicine, particularly the generics that come into our country. So it's time to seize control of this and other issues. But we've had you on, and we always fall short in the last chapter in your book, which I absolutely love. And it's a manufacturing campaign for America, right? It's getting the word out beyond what your book says and doing things like they happen. Give the example of what used to happen and how the government used to promote American manufacturing on the airwaves, TV and radio.
Yeah, you look back at the marketing campaigns of the 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, you see all this glorification and positive propaganda regarding the manufacturing industry and being in the manufacturing industry, especially during World War II. I think we've all seen, these posters of like, produce, produce, produce. Your hard work puts a bullet in the hands of the soldiers. All kinds of positive reinforcement. And I can't think of any ad or company that promotes their manufacturing in a positive way right now. And, government funding can and should be used for this to draw in the next generation of manufacturing workers. I mean, we have government funded campaigns for COVID, for monkeypox awareness, goofy stuff like that. We should be educating our youth that there is a path within the manufacturing industry where they can make six figures in not too long of a time if they just get involved. And again, it's that awareness of there's an industry that I can do before I have to join college.
John, you just put a smile on my face. I was laughing out loud. I had to mute. Monkeypox awareness, is that a thing?
Oh yeah, don't you remember? Yeah, of course. Yeah, that was a thing. Yeah, I saw billboards for it all over Los Angeles, and they're all over up and down the 405 freeway. There'd be like, Yeah, it's kind of disturbing. And so the government, if it wants to have human capital that can make products and for national security and to have a strong economy, we have to tell these kids and the populace that this industry is needs workers. There's a study by Deloitte Institute of Manufacturing that showed by 2030 we'd be short 2.1 million manufacturing jobs. With Trump's push, that could be 5 million jobs that will go unfilled because the skilled labor isn't there. And so we need to start drawing these kids in now in high school and educating them about a really good career path that awaits them.
Well, we need to get on an airplane and fly down to D.C. and tell our president that and Peter Navarro and the rest of the people in the White House that we need a massive PR campaign to cut through a lot of the BS and the nonsense in the press and really help enlighten. I'm not going to say educate, but enlighten the American people as to the real issues that we face, and the challenges that we face, and get the American people behind an effort to not only address some of the political issues that we face, but to help themselves out by providing themselves and their kids with great paying jobs in what used to be a wonderful sector of our economy.
And I see a MTV music video style campaign with the slogan, build strong families, build a strong nation. Join the manufacturing industry today with very cool music, Michael Bay directed music video, type stuff showing how awesome the manufacturing industry is, what you're making. I have a worker for me that works on all kinds of cool stuff. So,
well, we've done it again, John. We've run out of time. We'll have to have you back again. This is Home Talk USA on the King Broadcasting Network. I'm your host, Greg Owens, here on the Made in America Hour. Look forward to seeing you again next week.
Okay, guys.
All right. I think that was pretty good.
Yeah, thank you, Matthew, for coordinating everything as always.
Oh, you're welcome, John. Anytime.
And Greg, thanks for having me back. And I had emailed you with an introduction to a guy, two people that I thought would be, or three people that I thought would be good for your show or just for you, Greg, to know. One is Scott Meyer. Did you meet him?
The fellow from Texas we had on.
Gavin Stenner?
Yeah.
Okay, so you got Gavin. So there's another guy named Scott Mayer. He knows a lot of people you do, and he met with Michael Stumo in DC, and he built a rubber glove producing factory during Biden years and was promised almost $160 million in government funding. As soon as COVID wasn't a cool thing, they cut his funding, and he's sitting on a factory. He goes there once a month to turn the machines so they don't get bound up. He also has another manufacturing company in plastics, and then he did the coolest thing ever. He went and bought a old shut down cut and sew apparel factory in South Virginia and revived it and reopened it up, and he's making like magazine pouches for the military and stuff. I had emailed you. I'm gonna email you as soon as we get off just to reconnect you guys. He's a fantastic guy. And then finally, there's a writer kid. I don't want to call him a kid. He's graduated from Oxford. He focuses a lot on the mining industry and how